Okay, we're good.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. Call me in order. You roll call.
Jason Works. Tiffany Yanick. Here. Tony Bevel.
Here.
Dorian Label. Absent tonight. Lisa Patterson. Here. Richard Michi.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, on to approval of minutes. Any corrections or? Anything?
No, good one.
Your motion for the approve.
I move we approve the minutes as is.
A second.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, citizen comment.
We have a couple tonight. So the first one is from Lisa Cordes. Hi there, this is a general citizen comment. I'm not sure what can be done about this, but the four-way stop at Division and Pine near Stella Olson Park is somewhat dangerous. Typically, the drivers on Pine traveling in either direction do not stop fully. I've almost been hit driving as well as walking on Division. During the school year, my kids take the bus in the morning and walk up Division to Lincoln, across from Stella Olson to catch the bus, and they too have come close to being hit because of people not stopping fully and not paying attention to the cross traffic or foot traffic on Division. Thank you for your time. Lisa Portis. The second comment is from Kira Thompson. Hello, my name is Kira Thompson and I am a resident of Sherwood, Oregon. I would like to submit a citizen comment for the upcoming Traffic Safety Committee meeting. I live near the intersection of Murdoch and Oregon Street, and both streets are lacking in sufficient sidewalks and crosswalks, which pushes pedestrians into conflict with motor vehicles. I am speaking here specifically of the portion of Murdoch that runs from Oregon Street to Sunset, and the portion of Oregon Street that runs from Murdoch to the train tracks. In multiple places along both Murdoch and Oregon Street, there will be sidewalk on only one side of the street, say the western side, for example, and then it will end and the sidewalk will start again on the eastern side with no crosswalk. The 100 feet or so north of the intersection of Murdoch and Willamette is a good example. This means that it is impossible to walk the length of the road without either jaywalking, walking on the shoulder, or trespassing into somebody's yard. The lack of sidewalks also encourages speeding, since full sidewalks with bollards and trees providing separation, such as what is present on much of Sunset near Woodhaven, are known to have a natural slowing effect on traffic all on their own. I see frequent speeding on both streets and worry for the safety of pedestrians, many of whom are young children making their way to school. I know that the installation of sidewalks is often the job of the city planning committee, but crosswalks are mentioned as a consideration of this committee, and that plus the addition of bollards or trees would help immensely. Thank you for your time, Kira Thompson.
Information for us.
All right, so we'll move on to business. The new traffic safety request 2024-003, requesting 25 mile per hour speed limit sign on Willamette and extra speed enforcement at Willamette and Norton.
I went over and sat there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. More or less just monitored speed, and over the course of I would do like 15 to 20 minute blocks when I sat there. This time and calls allowed. There were only 5 out of 63 vehicles that were exceeding 25, and the fastest was 31. The others were like 26, so 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. Everybody else, the average was 21 miles per hour. So they're from what I could tell from sitting there, and I'm in an unmarked, so I try to hide amongst cars parked on the side of the road, so it's not having a black and white just visible sitting there. And blend in the best I can just to observe people and their natural behavior. I didn't see a speeding problem here.
Yeah, when I read this, I was a little uncertain of if I had the right street in mind, because that isn't really a through way. It seems like the only people entering are people going in and out of the neighborhood. So it seemed interesting that that was the section of the Willamette that was called out in this. And then furthermore, neighborhoods are 25 miles an hour. So a sign is redundant. I don't think that's a good use of our money to install signs when that's already the law.
And that would be from the police perspective, we'd say the same thing. So for the speed aspects, while there is speeders, it's not something that would hit our radar, for lack of a better term. So obviously, totally appreciate the citizens' comments there, and sometimes speeds can appear to be faster than they are, especially when you're in neighborhoods. So understand why they brought it forward, but that was that. The other thing I'd mentioned too is that when Chris did his good work on going out there to do this, it was a variety of different times, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah, that was the other part I did.
Staggered.
So we, different days of the week, different sides of the week, different, daytime versus evening and all that, to try to just make sure we weren't having to hit the one time when it really isn't. So yeah, our recommendation, at least from law enforcement, would be that it doesn't really meet the credential for that. That said, it'd be something we'll periodically, take a peek at, see if there's speeders on it and that, see if something is changing. But outside of that, we would go beyond.
It's related to that citizen comment we had last time.
Yeah, they're in person.
I used to live over near there. I think Willamette, while it's definitely a residential street, it in some way, I'm not sure what that, some cities have kind of like a neighborhood designation for a street, neighborhood route, neighborhood collector. It's like not a collector, but it's like not a residential street. It's definitely a connecting route through the heart of the whole residential area right down there. So I think it probably does see more traffic than your typical residential street, but I agree, it doesn't need a specific speed limit sign. It's very clearly a residential area. One of the things I think that causes it to feel like an unsafe street, and I've walked and ran down Willamette, is that there's just an intermittent sidewalks. It's not a complete street. So there's lots of sections where you just have to just walk in the road. And if you're going from Norton on Willamette, there's no sidewalks on the south side of Willamette, so you have to cross, and it's narrow. I actually thought there might be it might be a situation where there should be no parking on the north side of Willamette, because it narrows right there at Norton. And it's almost like there should have been no parking, but there isn't. But if you put no parking in there and actually enforce no parking, that's going to make people go faster. So I'm not sure that's gonna make anybody happy. Yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm okay with not doing anything on this one.
You guys, you do a motion for that?
Yeah. can't remember how we
I think so.
did our responses, and there's no action.
Yes.
I move that our committee takes no action on the request for the speed signs and let the department determine if they want to police the area as they feel appropriate.
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And I think we were right. Asked this question before, but you guys get back to these people and tell them.
Yeah, Sabrina does a great job of communicating with them, the disposition of what you guys say.
All right, we'll move on to pending items, starting with 2022-10 parking concern on St. Charles Way to the pathway requesting no parking signs.
We had put out or am I ready to talk about that one? Okay. We put up the notices. We thought we'd have this one resolved by now, but we did receive some feedback from the neighborhood notices about the crosswalk closed barricades potentially blocking wheelchair access. Someone does use actually the other side to go down in there and push their mother-in-law or mother for just kind of get out and about. And so we modified it to just a single bollard with the sign on that. Yep, neither of us had time to drive by today. That kind of pushed the resolution out. It should be fixed potentially now or very soon. I'll circle back.
Today.
Oh, good. Right on. We'll verify it. And we'll-
Well,
And
you saw it there.
Yeah. Motion. Done.
The motion to close it. Really good.
I was like, oh, look at that new sign.
Yeah, that started off with the RFP. And then I think Bob had recommended that. When we first started, so. Thanks.
Yeah, cool. So we need a motion to close that and,
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry.
yeah,
Was it a sign as well as the bollard or was it?
It was just like a sign on the bollard.
On the, oh, it's that.
I noticed I was
that
walking
weird
my
shaped one?
dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Around
we changed it
the
from the typical metal barricade that's a little bit wider because that was blocking the wheelchair from getting through. Just went with a single.
Yes, just like a sign with a pretty good size picture, no crossing.
All right, well, that's resolved. I move that we close this request.
I'll second.
any discussion. Okay, all in favor, so motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, on to 24-001, requesting no parking signs on one side of the street at Southwest Woodhaven between Hostler and YMCA.
Neighborhood notices are gonna go out on Monday. That would be July 1st. I believe code's 30-day notice. And our public works staff's good about getting these in 30 days, not too complex, at least there's no parking signs. And I'll check to verify that, but this should be done in a month, August 1st, so. At the August meeting, hopefully we come out and we at least have the signs on the post. I will say the painting of the curb request. I support that, but my argument for that's like more for like high school football game. Once the pedestrian bridge is open, we'll get more people parking there. So I know that our public works staff isn't really wanting to paint curbs, only if it's needed. So my recommendation is going to be put the signs up and then kind of hold off on the painting of the curb until maybe the first football game. And if we have a problem, we can paint the curb and, you know, we can talk about it then, but that's the plan of attack there is put signs up. I am recommending, you know, signs on each end and one in the center. So it's a pretty big distance between the two. And so this should be pretty straightforward. We'll see if we get any good comments like we did for St. Charles, but expect this one to be closed out by the August meeting. So stay on here.
With that, Well, that trail that goes north of Woodhaven, will you be able to go around to the bridge? No, from the trail?
Now, we cut the stairs out that were gonna be some stairs by the teen center that were kind of redundant because there's stairs right at the corner of the intersection too. So you can walk up to basically the crosswalk. It's 99 and Sunset and walk up the stairs there. So yeah, you can be able to get to that. And if you had ADA, you could go around to Sunset and take the ramp up from there. So that will stay on the list until August.
These things come out of the, whatever that budget line is for, not our budget, but our budget.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a project that came to us. You said, we gave our thoughts and opinions that we supported. The complaint that came in, you guys agreed to it, so yeah. And that's it.
Any questions or comments on that for everyone? All right, 2024-002 requesting paint curb on at least 8 feet in each direction on Southwest Fitch. And no turnaround side at the beginning of Fitch.
So we don't do painting of curbs. Typically that was deemed unnecessary, but we did get up a no turnaround sign, yellow on top of it within a week. So that's
Thanks.
So I think with that one previously, you guys had a motion, our recommendation was the no in regards to more no parking. And it was a yes to the signage, so I think just a motion and vote the case as.
Move that we close out 2024-002. With the request to add a sign, a no outlet sign to the beginning of Fitch Court.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. I'm going to update on city projects GIS map.
I thought we'd have time to do a presentation all set up today, but we did get new GIS staff on board. And we have a plan put together. We've met and we're guaranteeing we'll be able to sit here in August and go present our points and kind of show everybody how we've got the different categories laid out. And whether that's me or we may have our GIS specialist here with me doing that. And so, and a copy to Dan and Sabrina on that, and our utility manager who works with the GIS person. So that's pretty much the work plans in place, and we'll be back in 2 months finally to close this item out. That'll kind of be our tracking system for issues, and hopefully we can get that available to the public as well, so they can go through and eventually even sort out case files that have been resolved or no action and things like that. So I feel really good about this one, just other than not having it done tonight. It will be done in August.
All right. Thank you. Okay, couple no action required items. Do we have anything we want to ask about either of those? Otherwise, we can move on.
Chair, we kind of have something. So it's funny, we set up the no action required section to not talk about it, but we'd like to talk about the. We couldn't say that straight face. We'd like to chat just briefly about the second case on the agenda, that 23 case. It's the 007. The request for no parking on one side of Smith Avenue between Menke and Vintner. So Jason and I both kind of just did some additional work looking at this. As you remember back on this, it was one of those things where we were like, think Jason was looking for some history in regards to when that went in, and was there some history as to why past city managers and planning and things like that had decided to not restrict the parking, and we just decided that we would go out and take a look at this again, and we did. We can both speak to it. It's one of those things that, when you look at the street of, what's the street? It is Smith, right? Yeah. When you look at the street of Smith, there's parking allowed on both sides of the road. This does review. When we went there and there was a person's car parked on the curb on one side and we parked my police car on the other side, there's enough room for a vehicle to travel, you know, in between those two vehicles back and forth. But if you had two cars that were coming at each other, someone's gonna have to do the typical kind of hold in someone's open driveway space there for that one to go before someone else can, right? So, that's what our observation was. When we started looking at that, and Jason can speak to it probably better than I can, but we started to say that concept of a car having to wait, you know, kind of pull off while someone goes through and then someone else is what we see throughout 90% of the residential areas through Woodhaven and on the other side of 99 as well. So, Jason, am I missing that at all?
No, that's the case. That's the case. I did do some digging after we met, and with the engineering department on new developments, our standard is a 28-foot section with no parking on one side. So when new, and that's what we were talking about, when new projects come through, there will be no parking on one side. But for existing, there's no mandate to make them no parking on one side. And digging into other cities, there are case-by-case situations where you might have a lot of daily traffic or peak hour traffic, and cities have added them later in certain areas, just in small segments to get to neighborhoods where there may be a lot of cars coming in at peak hour. I don't know if there's any threshold, if it's like 5,000 ADT or something like that, but there's also for private sites, TVFNR has 20-foot clear and 26 feet if there's a hydrant, which these areas would actually violate that, but fire code doesn't apply to the public roads. And typically they would, I don't know if it works this way, but the fire marshal may see a central route like Dewey, where there is that situation where parking is on one side. So I would say for retrofitting it, totally out of my pay grade to go start putting in parking signs. New development, we can do that. There's some more riskier areas like on Galewood where it's really tight and cars are on both sides at the end of the day. So I think we need to keep this on here, and I'd like to reach out to the deputy fire marshal to discuss it a bit more and then discuss it with our city manager, kind of an approach of, because this is all over the city. If we were to say, put these up on Smith where it's straight, now we're kind of opening the citywide discussion. So I don't think there's really much that we can do to put them on Smith. I do think that was tied to when the high school over there, all the high schoolers were parking on Smith, so it was more of an issue. So I'm gonna again talk to the fire marshal, dig into this a bit more on what sort of thresholds there are, and then talk to the city manager, and I can probably give you a better update on that in August of what we're gonna do or what we won't do or what we can't do.
So I have a question about the time of day and for what day, did you go down on that street? Like after hours when people are home from work and the residential parking, or during?
Just during the days. And with that said, though, I think our opinion of it is that it's not, even if there was more flow on the road than what we saw when we were there, and there was vehicles that were coming and going. Like I said, it would be just one of those things where there's no reason why someone can't pull kind of over to someone's driveway spot while someone goes to then go. No different than any street.
You hit the nail on the head with Willamette, where maybe there's some spots where we can put no parking, but then that just opens up potential to go faster too, so.
Yeah, so we kind of just it's one of those things where just as Jason said, if we start putting no parking there, we would have to. We probably have about 100 other, 5 miles of city streets. I think we would have every single street then saying, well, that one, why isn't ours getting it? And we would suddenly now not have really anywhere for parking either. We would have a big parking issue, so.
Well, the reason I was asking is since this request, has hit the books here, I've driven down that road at least a dozen times. I couldn't say that I've ever seen more than maybe 2 or 3 cars parked on the side of the street that we were referencing here. And that's why I was wondering, is there maybe a busier time? And most times when I go, it's after 5 PM or it's been on weekends, and I just haven't seen that much there. And like you mentioned, a couple streets surrounding my house are so much tighter where it's a curve and you can't even see. So you're 5 miles an hour squeezing between 2 cars kind of going around. So I mean, from my perspective, it's like, oh, if everyone else wants it, sure, I'll go along with it. But this just, it doesn't seem like it's an issue from what I've observed.
And when the high school there was 7:30 AM until 3, that everyone was parked on the side, so I can see that being a pretty big issue, but.
Not that easy for you, it's not, yeah, for the amount of time you're there, 3 cars went by, like I said, there was no one parked on one side of the road at all. Just us trying to produce the problem by putting a police car there was really the only thing. If we hadn't been there, that 2 cars could have just been passing, so. So I think you make a great point, Richard, of just, I think, at least what I think Jason and I are united in saying here is that we're not saying that from a city perspective, it's a hard no to every location, because just as Jason well articulated, there could be a road that gets on a curve and it just makes sense to do it because of the hazard it produces. We just don't see it in this one.
McGill was a great example because nobody parks there during the day and you can get through very easy, but then once everyone fills it up, it actually makes me go through there at 10 miles per hour. So I'll sometimes hit a car head on and we both play the backup who's going this way game. And we typically always get through that way. So.
And that's the exact street I was referencing.
Yeah.
There's a
It's
curve.
probably the worst around.
Yeah,
And it.
but no one's making a complaint. So I'm gonna fuck that.
That's pretty bad. Do we have any accidents even that are over like the 250 insurance thresholds and stuff?
You think about the one that we did just talk about and vote on in regards to on Woodhaven, right? Like a lot of the foundation of what we came to you to say is like, that's pretty wide road, Woodhaven, but at the same time, and 2 cars can pass. But it's close and it's on that curve and it's at a downhill angle. So there's specifics to it that made it make sense to say, we can look at it differently, right? Not black and white on everything. So.
The one question I have for Smith at Meineke, is there a choke point at all? Because you had kind of mentioned like at, the entering off of, like kind of like entering and exiting off of Meineke, but.
It's a great question, and I'm laughing because it's kind of funny. As we were leaving from doing our analysis, a huge water truck came turning off of Meineke onto Smith. Kind of mimicking what you're asking about. And while yes, it was like a large truck and we had to be over, it didn't produce a situation that.
Concrete truck on Gilwood too.
But yeah, it didn't produce a situation that I would say that warrant some uniqueness to it, other than any other street when you turn onto it, that would potentially be cars parked there.
Do you recall what the width is?
27 was that, and then our new standards a foot wider. And again, if we do a new development, we're putting no parking signs on one side of by the TSP. So, and we'll dig into it a little bit more, talk to the city manager. And maybe it's more points on the map come in and we define essential routes or something like that for certain areas. But yeah, you're right. It'd be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no parking signs that and now we've got everyone driving faster on local streets, so. Totally out of my wheelhouse and expertise to go retrofit when not mandated to do, so.
So do we want to change the recommendation to this and not add it to the GIS map? Because we're saying our recommendation is to not.
We'll put it in the GIS no matter what, just as a case file, and we can just leave it there as a on hold, and it can just hover there for.
But we could, it would be on the GIS map, but it'd be shown as closed because we're moving to take no action.
These could keep going. I think we probably have like 3, 4 over time for this area, but some of them are before the traffic safety committee, and I think that's the whole point of the GIS is just to be able to track these things, but some things we can't do anything about now, but we have them sitting there for later.
I think you're at, you tell me, Jason, what you think, but I think they're at a position that if you wanted, you could close out this case. Jason wasn't talking to the fire department additional just about anything. If there was something that was totally out of left field that we weren't aware of, we'd just bring it back to you like, hey, we need to reopen this case. But I think at this point, from our analysis, what we see, it could be closed in our opinion. So, but that's up to you if you wanted to stay until Jason talks to the fire department, or if you want to close it down. Or not, it's up to you.
I think it's worth waiting personally. I think, while the fire code might not apply to the right of way, I think it is often applied to the right of way. And I think I agree with everything you guys said about traffic flow, but from a city liability, fire response perspective, if you have a fire on Smith and the fire truck can't set up and fight the fire because there's traffic or parking on both sides. I know we've all talked about it. I don't know. You might want to talk to the fire department and just get their statement, and then we can close it after that. But
Which direction we go? Let you know in August.
I mean, there's no action required anyway, so on that part of the agenda.
Nice. Back around. I started it, you finished it. Good job, Sharon.
Okay, so on to committee comments. Anything not on the agenda anybody has?
I have a thought just with the GIS map and as we're adding these to a map and archiving them, do you think would it be beneficial to add some kind of tagging or categorization of the request, whether like speed related, parking related, pedestrian safety, walking, crossing related, and then potentially even the speed related ones could be handled in a more like automated way, because it's really, here's the locations and they get that to a list to monitor. And I don't know, as we potentially may get more and more requests.
Yeah, let's go over the attributes list, and then you guys can look at what we proposed initially, and then we can, if you want, make a motion to add speed as a category, so we can drop off all 25 basic rule, and we can put in anything not, but yeah, that's kind of what we were just going to take a first stab at attributes, but we should do that and just go through it, and how do we want to categorize them closed out, just a regular time, but yeah, that sounds like a good exercise, and we can just pull it up and show it off, show all the attributes, go through them, and then, either not make a motion, everything's okay, or a motion to add, motion to delete, that's fine. That's actually a great idea. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, Lisa, for us, right, Chris? That'd be helpful for you as the traffic officer to be able to see the ones that are speed related and be like, speed one, speed one, speed one, speed one at one location
Yeah.
and be like, yep, spend some time on that spot, or it's speed ones, but they're really old versus new. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Like a topic, and then we can categorize, like even the road categories of what's the posted speed, what's the classification, what's the complaint about, and then have a whole series of attributes that we have for all the case files, and then go from there. That's a great idea. I like it.
I had a general comment and question. So first off, I just want to say that I went to the cruising car show last week or the weekend before. I had a great time. My family loved it. We've gone several years in a row, and it's always great. And it's cool to see all the pieces coming together where everyone's working together, and you see the department has a booth there, and the fire department has a booth there, and it's just always good to see everyone part of the community. And it got me thinking. I parked in front of someone's house a block away off Main Street, and I was wondering, do we get complaints from the residents, or are they just kind of used to it and they just know Robin Hood Festival and cruise, and it's just going to be a busy time and cars are going to come and go from their curb in front of their house? Or is it, does it ever rattle residents the wrong way that there isn't, big designated parking areas where people go and walk from?
We do get complaints. Yeah, we get complaints kind of in both ways. We get complaints from neighbors that, obviously, just as you said, Richard, they're impacted with that. But more so than that, we also get complaints from the neighbors because we've had to put in temporary no parking signs, right? So we put in temporary no parking to be able to do the rerouting of traffic since the core is shut down. No different for Robin Hood Festival, Winter Festival, those types of things. That core gets shut down, we have reroutes around. So those reroutes then put onto the narrow residential streets that, we're talking about. So we end up putting temporary no parking signs up. It's interesting you bring this up, Richard, because it's something that for us as the police department is a very big struggle for us. And that struggle is that when we put those no parking signs up, there's not a lot of teeth in the municipal code that allows us, when people park in those areas, and those areas could be the emergency roads for fire, ambulance, all that stuff, they can't get through. There's no ordinance ability for us to be able to tow those vehicles. You can issue citations. Yeah, move those vehicles out. So, to go to your point, it's one of those things that, if you as a committee wanted to tackle that, it would be something that, to have addressed with city council and things like that. It would be something that from the police department, we don't like impacting people by towing vehicles. Don't get me wrong, it's like not the path we want to take. We often, when we have those situations, Chris, you can speak to it. What do you do typically if there's a vehicle that's parked that could be blocking and it's in no parking? What would you first try to do?
Excuse me. I'm gonna track down the phone number if we can. If they live local, go knock on their door, but try to at least contact them and see if they can come and move their car. But outside of that, I mean, in my opinion, citing them doesn't really do anything because it's gonna be after the fact that they deal with the citation. If we need the car moved now, the citation's not gonna solve that problem, so.
So Chris is spot on, right? You go to big lengths, whereas other cities would just be like, you hook it and tow it, but we're trying to do that, but then we can't get that vehicle moved, as he said. These roads are often the roads, so like I said, it's like a fire truck, that's their road because we get through. So to be able to address with city council, the concepts of looking at a tow ordinance would be something maybe that you, I know Richard, you're part of that, or
I don't know,
kind of.
I don't remember where I heard this idea. If it was last year when we were planning one of these events, but somewhere somebody brought up, and it's gonna drive me crazy till I can remember where it came from. But typically when we tow a car, at least when law enforcement tows a car, the car gets towed to the tow lot and then people have to go and pay whatever. Expensive fee they have to pay for the tow plus the storage and this and that, but somebody brought up the idea of, when we have this event like a Robin Hood or the cruising, that if it was budgeted into whatever expense or however this got paid for, but to have a designated lot somewhere in the city where if there is a car parked, we have a contract with a local tow company to come and move that car to like high school parks, what I'm saying, somewhere. That way they're not incurring the fees of having to pay the storage at the tow company and this and that. That way their car stays local. It's just, we're just moving it from here to somewhere out of the way.
But until city ordinance really
Yeah.
kind of enables us.
Where I heard that, yeah.
Doesn't even give us that ability to.
Are there different tiers of parking, temporary no parking signs? Like, is there one no parking because this is for emergency vehicles versus just general no parking? Can we create a tier of an ordinance that only applies to a certain level of sign, or it's just?
Don't know the answer to that question. I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
Can you partner with the organization that's putting on the event and they do, because it's essentially them private towing, but helping coordinate that where it's less impact on the resident or whoever's car.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because what happens is that, and I may hit on answering your question a little bit, is that everything that we do is based under either municipal code developed by city, right? Or by ORS, so state statute. So in essence, when we, the city, when I say we, the city's having the police department act as their agent, we need to have some legal grounds to be able to say, tow truck driver, hook up to that car and take it. So we have to have something within either state statute or municipal code that enables us to do that. As it stands right now, that's the struggle. So I think what I'm saying, Richard, is to answer your question, to have a tier factor, that would probably have to be something in municipal code. Otherwise, we're acting really on state statute. Chris, am I getting it right?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And there are instances where we can, like, does the city already have any kind of a tow ordinance, like you parking from a fire hydrant? Or is that more an ORS thing? Like DUI is probably ORS, you have the ability to tow.
Do you want to hit on it or
Yeah,
hazard tows?
it pretty much just has to be a hazard tow. We don't tow for parking in front of hydrants. And then, if the vehicle's side. Yeah, towing. We actually don't do a whole lot of towing here in Sherwood,
So we can, in certain circumstances, just very, very limited. So Jason's driving down the road and he just decides to park his car out in the middle of, L works and walk away from it. We have the right to be able to, under state statute, say that's a hazard, tow, so it's there, we can do that. But if it's something that's in conjunction to a no parking sign, then we can't do that unless there's a municipal code that would allow us to do so.
I think during these festival times, everyone has to take a chill pill. It's one day, maybe 2 days, hey, okay, it's not gonna, drive you crazy, but live with it. Is it worth getting really aggravated about?
Yeah. A lot of different animals out there in the jungle, so. So everyone has their own views on that, yeah.
And I don't think, I think most people have a very fond impression of Sherwood, and I don't know if we necessarily want to be known as the city that tows you for the slightest, inconvenience. So it's, it's like we don't necessarily want to go completely down that rabbit hole, but But yeah, that is interesting to know that, yeah, there is maybe a part of the puzzle that's missing that could be filled in a little.
Yeah, if it's ever anything that you as a group look at or start going out there and asking questions and looking into it, you want to, explore it and present it as some proposal to city council, feel free for us to try to provide you with whatever answers to your questions you have. But it's definitely something that would be beneficial, so. And I think it's to go to what you're saying, Richard, too, is becomes, you have to have faith in, the community has to have faith in the police department that they're going to enforce versus try to gain compliance appropriately, right? And that's really what, for us, law enforcement is, and that's why Sherwood does law enforcement very well, better than a lot of other locations. They don't look as an approach of saying enforcement first. They look at trying to gain compliance first, right? And then if we don't gain compliance, then we step into enforcement. I.e., can you please, let's try to find the owner of the vehicle. Can you move your car? And if they don't, then we'll move towards citations or towing. So.
Thanks for sharing.
Yep.
I also have committee comment.
Before we move on, Chair, from that part, I guess we'll tap in here just in regards to your comments from last month. So last month, yeah, that you guys were talking about the aspect of how do we get the word out of traffic safety committee one. And so it was something that, if you remember correctly, we were like, what ways could we do that? And you guys had presented ideas of social media, QR codes, different concepts like that. So, and at that meeting, we had said, yep, we'll like your idea, try to see if there's other ways to be able to connect. And so we did. And so the police department used our social media sites to be able to push out messaging in regards to that you guys exist. Committee's underway, what do you have in community? So since that messaging went out, we were hit pretty hard in regards to a lot of complaints that came into us. We're probably 25, probably 30 at this point. Complaints that have come in regards to traffic safety committee related issues. Some of those that have come in have been outside of our jurisdiction. So these are ones that have come to us via email. And then have either come via email or have come via an official traffic safety committee complaint form. And so it's going to take us a lot of time. And you can imagine, being on the committee for a long time, the number of cases we've had or how many we get in a year. 30 cases in 1 month is more than we've had, I would say, in 2 years, probably. That'd be probably count 2-3 years. So it's going to take Jason and I and Chris and Sabrina quite some time to work through it. We're already messaging out to those that sent emails. Some of them were not in our jurisdiction. Like that's none of our swim lane. Some of them are in relation to traffic flow issues and design issues that would maybe be a county issue. Some of these things that are coming to us are design concepts as opposed to traffic safety committees, so they don't really belong at our committee for what our span of control is for what we do. So Jason and I are going to work through those and try to figure out which ones of those will end up not even hitting your desk. And we'll end up getting filtered over to other agencies in the city. But at some point we'll start feeding the ones that we feel actually do apply for our level at traffic safety versus at higher level. A lot of the ones that are coming in would be big projects, right? And it's no different than when I came on the team. I didn't realize until I learned from Jason, before that Bob, that, when it's like, let's get a crosswalk in here with a flashing light. And I had no clue that that's $100,000 or $150,000 for a crosswalk and a flashing light. I had no idea that that's what that cost was, and I've been in law enforcement a long time, but I haven't been in engineering. I haven't been in planning and design, so I don't know those swim lanes. So a lot of these are big projects, so they may not come all year.
We'll take care of the small ones like we got some pedestrian lead time on 99W. I don't know if you noticed on Sunset Now work. They just took reaching out to the state's traffic engineer and ask him to look into the bandwidth on the county side, and now there's 5 seconds lead in time for the pedestrians before you can turn right, and that was just, stuff we can take care of really quickly. We don't need to bring to the committee and hash it out when we know what needs to be done right, so.
But there's some, and like I said, I haven't even been able to read through them all. Obviously, this is just one piece of our jobs. So we're trying to filter and just reading them into our regular job stuff. But there are some that are gonna hit, in regards to like, hey, interest in a stop sign, or, those types of issues that you've all been dealing with. So there'll be stuff that'll come your way.
I feel from my perspective, the broadcast of our message was very successful, so thank you for accomplishing that. And yeah, I think we look forward to seeing the requests slowly start trickling through.
Yeah, I agree. I thank you for doing that. I know it's overwhelming. But I'd rather people know where to point their complaints and issues than just either internalize them or complain amongst themselves. Maybe we can't do everything about all of them, but at least they're going to the right people now. Okay, well, I had one other comment, and that was that I saw that Edie Road project was approved in the county's MSTIP funding earlier this month. So,
I think about 17 million we had in there.
yeah, it says 14.2 on here, but
When does it begin?
pretty close.
Depends on it.
Don't have it memorized.
I know.
That one, like sidewalks and whatnot down Edie, is that what that
Yeah.
project is?
The fortress to,
And when does
Upper
that start?
stairs. I don't know the schedule.
We're gonna talk about that internally. I think we're meeting with the county still on that, and the mayor and city manager are pretty interested in getting that going quickly. All the monies are there and just getting it done, so.
But I just thought that was cool to see.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of our earlier ones that, not that we made that happen or anything, but there was a piece of it where we talked about it. Okay. Anything else? All right, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.